right. We own.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, we're gonna mute the audio for we're gonna mute the background music for reasons. But hello, welcome to Usap Tado, which is the first ever podcast done by the Philippine Tados, a miniature hobby gaming group in the Philippines. Basically, the term Usap Tado, for those that are listening internationally, Usap is talk, and then there's a usual term where it's let's talk. But here in this case, it's Usap Tado, and Tados are usually the group of people who like to paint, like to talk about hobby, all things miniature, all things games. So we got here the lovely peeps, the administrators, the admins of Philippine Tadas, who will be talking today about licensed games. So
Hello.
basically, this is just a spot where we're just gonna nerd out and talk and everything under the sun. So the coverage of licensed games is basically, um, the usual types of games that then start off as board games or the tabletop games. They started out as a movie, a franchise, and these media companies are dipping their toes into, uh, shall we say, the gaming industry. So, yeah. But before that, let's give a little introductions to ourselves, and I'm gonna. You guys can start. I'm over. So,
Why
No,
don't you kick us
I'll,
off, Admin Josh?
I will, I will, st- I will start. I will start. But before we do, let's all praise the our and our elder God here.
Yes.
all
Patay, patay.
hail.
Hello.
Cthulhu
My
patay.
name.
Patay.
If
For those who
you
are
this,
listening,
I'm.
there's a giant Cthulhu model in Milo's room right now. For those who are not able to see.
Look at that big boy.
Big boy.
All right. So
Big,
I'm
big strong boy.
admin Milo, one of the administrators or administrados of the Philippine Tadas Facebook group. Yeah. Passing it to you, Josh.
Yes, hello everyone. This is Admin Juice here. Yes, also like Milo and like everyone else in this call right now. I'm also a admin. Getting actually as I'm here right now. I'm sorry I don't have a video by the way, but as I'm here with you, I'm actually painting stuff for the game that I'm going to be talking about later. Because of course I
Sounds
am.
good.
But yeah, I
My
hope
name is
everyone's doing.
sorry
Hope
to cut you
everyone's
off. My
having a
name is
good day.
Louis. Sorry, I cut you off, man.
No, 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 it's okay. I hope
Okay.
everyone's having a good night. Louis, it's you, man.
Okay, sorry. Thanks, man. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Milo. Thank you, Mars. My name is Louis Loves Minis. I'm one of the 5 admins of our Facebook group. So if you're new to listening here, look up Filipintados. We are the painting group in the Philippines. If you want to check out what the Philippine talent is like, look us up there. We are live almost every month, and we talk about miniatures every freaking day.
Lit. It's on his forehead. Sorry. Yeah. So give it a follow. You guys want to check it out? It's a group of nanos. There you go. It's on his forehead. Yeah. Uh I guess last but not the least, intro me. Hi, I'm Mars. A lot of people on the internet and the tabletop RPG communities know me as Den Mother. I'm more um, I'm more into the TTRPG scene, but I do appreciate the
Woo!
minis. A lot of minis. I do have a backlog that's staring at me like right now on the side. There's an Indomitus box that's just staring. It's like paint me, paint me, and I'm like
Hey,
hides.
i-paint mo na yan. You better get that painted next year. We're getting 10th ed, man. That's a whole other
Yeah,
backlog coming. I'm gonna
Actually,
miss
wag mo
yeah.
that
na
shit.
i-paint. Magiging out of production na yan. Rare commodity na yan. So, magiging
Yeah,
collector's
dude.
item yan. Leave it
Yeah,
na. Resale value
actually, yeah, man.
Oh
in
yeah.
10 years.
Collection na lang. Collect. But yeah. So, licensed games. Before we get to licensed games, I kind of want to know how you guys came about just the Usap. Tado concept because I remember just going in the GC and everyone's like, "Hey, this is happening now." Okay, sige, I'll help implement. So
Didn't you think
I,
about Usap Tados? Who talk about
did
Usap Tados?
I thought I just suggested the name, but the
It was a good
podcast
suggestion,
was,
man.
but
Yeah,
No,
the
no, so Mars was the one who branded it, but I think it was Josh and Louie who said,
yeah, you
"I
guys
want
were
to
like,
do
"Hey,
guys,
let's do
I
a
want to do a
podcast."
podcast." Yeah,
yeah. I take responsibility for that. I'm the one who said, "No, let's do an episode." Well, no, I said let's do an episode. I didn't say let's start a podcast. I was just like, let's talk about no licensed games. So technically, legally speaking, you cannot bind me to the podcast idea.
Eh,
No, but
episode lang
yeah,
daw.
I wanted to do a the hobby talk. We used to do this a lot. We just haven't been able to do it for a while because life gets in the way. I wanted to talk about specifically this topic because, well, one, obviously, I am playing a bunch of licensed games right now, which are really fun and like they're very different compared to other games that we're used to. Um, and so it'll be fun to broach that topic to people, especially those who are already playing it or are still kind of on the fence. They're like, you know what? This Marvel Crisis Protocol game looks really good. I wonder if I should buy the starter set. And hopefully you do buy the starter set because it's actually a really fun game. So yeah, well, yeah, that's one because I play it. Um, two because there are a lot of them now. There are so many licensed games coming out now. Like I mean, yeah, we have certain ones that we're going to talk about in this episode, but um, even as I speak, there are people out there in the world playing licensed games for media franchises that we didn't even know existed. Like,
Yeah.
um, for like, I didn't even know that there was a until I guess a few years ago, I didn't know that there was a Batman miniatures game. I didn't know that there was a Harry Potter miniatures game or a
Sadly
what else?
discontinued, but yeah.
Okay. Or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one. I didn't even
yep.
know that was a thing.
Bro,
So
Are you even
you know
aware
I
of
all of
that?
think 10 years old.
There's a Judge Dredd miniatures board game.
I
There
didn't know that.
is.
I knew that there was a Judge Dredd miniatures line made by Citadel way back in the 80s, but I didn't know that there was a new game for it. But yeah, see that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Eh,
all of us have our own preferred licensed games, and so we talk about it here, kind of get each other interested, get you guys interested in them, and yeah, hopefully it'll add to your painting backlog or stuff for you to stuff for you
That's the
to
goal.
enjoy. That's the
And
goal.
all the yeah.
Actually, to add to what you
and
said, man, like coming from a Warhammer player, the releases of Warhammer is like weekly. It feels like they release models every week. So I feel like there's a lot of hobby burnout in the Warhammer community. So these smaller skirmishing games, easier to pick up, easier to play, easier to paint. It's
Oh
a
yeah,
lot more accepted. Like you got into Marvel so fast after ninth edition, dude. I saw you
yeah,
grow your army so fast. You're able to play so fast, and now it's
yeah,
picking up. There's a lot of kits in the Philippines that there are lots of stores in the Philippines stocking up on Marvel. So I feel like
yeah,
we're also on the rise in terms of licensed games outside of Warhammer, which is a super welcome feeling right
oh
now.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing. Like um, over the past couple of years, like no one was playing this game. And then the moment people started buying and checking it out, we now have tournaments. I'm like, it's really quick now. All of a sudden, we now have tournaments locally. Like, whoa, where did this come from? So yeah, yeah, definitely.
You like I know it's like not miniature related, but in terms of licensing games, I was super surprised when Dune came out as a TTRPG. Like the
Oh
Imperium,
yeah,
the Imperium was so
Mm,
good, and the fact that there's The Walking Dead released by Free League, so I was just like, a lot of there's a lot of fans, zombie fans, and it's nice that there's a zombie RPG coming out. And then like it's just surprising that there's suddenly like this huge media franchise is just suddenly like turning up in games. Like 'cause, I think a lot of people want to like play a character in those worlds, so it's nice that they're doing that with miniatures and TTRPGs. Yeah. Yes, The Walking Dead from Free League. Ooh, it's always hype. Anyways, so, just checking comments. But yeah,
Who
All
wants to
right.
talk about the first licensed game for the evening?
Yeah. So for that,
yeah,
without further ado, let's get on with the games.
yells.
So I believe Milo, you would like to talk about
Yes.
something first, sir?
Yes, our Lord
So
and
I'll
Savior
start.
Cthulhu.
I'll Yes, I'll start something big. So for those who are listening but not seeing the video, I have here with me about a 2.5 feet tall big miniature statuette of Cthulhu, which comes from a game called Cthulhu Death May Die. It was a Kickstarter, I think, circa 2018. Released officially 2019, and actually earlier latter part of last year, we've seen a second campaign on Cthulhu Death May Die. So this is actually a game that ventures into the H.P. Lovecraft lore. So to what Josh said, it's one of those games that was heavy on. I mean, prior to this, I would say renaissance of board gaming. The Lovecraft mythos is something that I've always liked. I've read the books. I've even watched a few. Well, not big movies, but still some movies. I even listened to specialized audiobooks on Lovecraft. So when this thing came out, I jumped all in, like everything, including the add-ons and the extra bundles, etc., including this big miniature, which is, I believe, costed about $100.
Bruh.
Yeah.
Delicious.
So why do I like the Cthulhu Death May Die game? So first of all, let's talk about the miniatures because we're miniature painters here. Um, Cthulhu Death May Die is produced by one of the biggest, or rather, one of the famous miniature board game company, which is Simon Games. Uh, and their miniature lines come assembled, but as an assembled miniature, it's one of the best ones out there. The details are amazing. It's very durable. Uh, it's not something like like in the Warhammer miniatures, wherein they're quite fragile. If you drop them on the floor, there's a good chance you'll lose a hand, a skull, or whatever. But
Mm.
Simon Games, these are, I believe, resin mold or injected. I don't know the technical terms for those things, but it comes in about more than 100, and it's one of the best designed games out there. So, and as far as miniatures are concerned, you've got a great variety of that. And what I do love about it is that when I paint them, or when I painted them, I was listening to the Necronomicon,
Of
um,
course, as you
Immersion.
should.
and that, of course, immerse yourself, right?
Oh, yeah,
Get
as you
into it,
should.
and
As you should.
yeah, and I think that's what I like about these games, right? You've been a fan. You are, first and foremost, you're a fan of the lore first, then the miniature painting itself, even the game before the game itself. So you're a fan of the lore itself. So you're really, and one of the things that gives us that burnout is you don't have that attachment to the miniatures. And for me, I get this burst of adrenaline in painting them because I just love the lore. I know them. I know what they talk about, and I'm just so excited to put them on the table and play with them. So that gets me going. And compared to my backlog in Warhammer, I don't have backlog with some of my special games that are based on lore because again, I love them. I would listen to,
Yabang!
of course, and
Liar!
then I would. No, I'm not, dude. My Cthulhu Death May Die was painted in less than 2 months, except for this big boy, because this will require airbrush,
The
right? But everything
dedication.
else was
That's a
painted.
good job, though. Seriously, good job.
Yeah. So yeah, and I'll briefly talk about the game. Is that the part of this, Juice? Not just
Yeah, yeah.
the
Talk
finishing.
about,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
Walk us through. Walk us through.
Yeah, walk us through. Walk us through.
So, Cthulhu Death May Die, in terms of the lore, is that you are trying to prevent an Elder One coming out of our material plane. And when they do come out, because they're fresh out of their whatever dimension they came from, you still have this window of opportunity to push them back to that portal, and then you're done. So that's the objective of the game. Easier said than done. My win ratio on this game is possibly around 20%. One in every
Whoa.
five games I win.
That's pretty high
But
for
for
a Cthulhu game.
it is. Now it's more of a dungeon crawl. So for those who play board games, dungeon crawl is basically you're exploring some dungeons or some form of map, and you have a couple of obviously you have characters there. But what I love about Cthulhu Death May Die is that along the game, besides losing health because you're getting damaged, you could also lose what is called sanity. So you could get crazier and crazier as the game progresses. Now, what I love about it is as the game progresses and your insanity increases, you also get to unlock more abilities. So, for example, you're a fire, yeah, you're somebody who can control fire, right? As the game progresses, your ability to control fire becomes crazier and crazier. You can do more damage with that fire, but you get closer and closer to getting insane. So that's kind of like a gamble for me. And what I love about that is it really pushes the limit of your gaming. It's primarily a cooperative game. It's not a player versus player. So for those who, like me, are a solo board gamer as well, you can definitely enjoy this even without players or other players. But you can also
Nice.
enjoy this with friends. So there's a lot of variety in this game. So yeah, so that's Cthulhu Death May Die, one of my favorites. I'm all in into this game, both two campaigns and the Kickstarter.
Yummy.
Wow,
How
I
about
didn't
you?
realize how heavy you're into that game, man. That's crazy. But you can
Oh
still.
man,
Is it possible to play it with cooperatively with people?
yeah, absolutely. It was made for I think up to 4 or 5 players.
Yeah, I assume it takes more than one person to take down an elder god. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
More chances of dying.
more chances of
More
dying
chances of
always.
sanity.
Oh, and I think that's one of the things. One of the things that I like about this is it scales up or down depending on the number of players you have.
Oh,
So
Oh.
if you have more players, it becomes more difficult. And if you have less players, it also scales down just right. So it's got that. It's a little bit fair.
It sounds
All right, so
exciting, dude. We should play that when we meet up one of these days.
we should. So on
I'll be
that
there in
note, I'll
spirit.
give it to you, Louis. Louis, I think we agreed you're the next one to share your game.
Yeah, actually, you also can speak a lot about this because you and I both play this game, and it's a little bit
Yes.
related to what you're talking about in lore. Because there's a lot of lore in this franchise called Game of Thrones, so everyone's pretty much familiar with it. Yeah, dude. And I have to tell you, the magic for me for that game was when I was playing Starks and when someone was playing Night's Watch and someone was playing Lannisters. And we inadvertently reenacted the Battle of the Brothers. So for the fans, you know how exciting that can be when you accidentally make a scenario like that. And for those who are not
But
familiar with how the
Louis,
game is played, it's
Louis, I'll be a true fan. It's not Game of Thrones, my friend. It's a Song of Ice and Fire.
sorry. Yeah, you are right. You are right. You are right. See, I'm glad this is why you're here, man. I'm glad you pointed out. So, A Song of Ice and Fire, the tabletop miniatures game, is the full name by Simon. It was initially a Kickstarter game, and it's a rank and file game. So, for people who don't know, a rank and file game is you have like a square tree, you have miniatures on it, and then you move the tray as one unit. And the nifty thing that initially got me interested was besides the lore, which Milo already talked about how lore can really like pull you into a game, was
The lore.
there's no health tracking. When you get a wound, quote unquote, you pluck off a miniature until there are no more miniatures on your tray. So that being said, when you talk about the painting aspect of it, each box compared to a Warhammer perspective, each box of a squad comes with 16 pre-built miniatures. They're pre-built, so there are less steps. But if you're coming from Warhammer, where you buy a kit of five, it's a big jump to paint a single squad. And knowing Simon, for you Simon enthusiasts, you know how many miniatures come inside a small Simon box. Like, let me just look up a box of Zombicide here. I'm sure this box of Zombicide has like 56 miniatures in one box. So it's very taxing to get into a Simon game, to be
Al-
honest. But
although
the
although
reason,
there are boxes, although there are boxes in the Song of Ice and Fire that are comes in four medium size, which are cavalry usually, and then there are those that
yeah.
are coming with, if I'm not mistaken, one sometimes. I may be wrong though.
No, you're talking about the heroes. So there's still some boxes, but majority of the boxes, it really increases your backlog. So for those people who are planning to get into this game, I came in thinking I will not buy this game because I have too much backlog. If ever I do, which I did, I told myself I will just speed paint the army. I will just use this for play and not for top notch quality. But one of the things that this game touts is that there is a non-combat unit. They call it an
Yes.
NCU. So if you're into like tabletop warfare games, you're used to looking at your field of troops battling it out. But in game on A Song of Ice and Fire, you have a tray outside, and you can pick your non-combatant unit. So, for example, I'm a Night's Watch player. I have my Lord Commander. I have a few other heroes that are not on the battlefield, but depending where I place them in the non-combat area affects the troops. And a good example is like Lannisters, which I hate going against. You can put them in the money bag symbol, and they basically bribe one of your enemy's troops,
Yes.
which is
And
so incredible.
and that part of the game there, if I recall, has the most I guess recognizable characters,
True,
right? For
true. Even
example,
if you watch the
Tyrion
show and
Lannister.
read the book,
Yeah. So, for example, Tyrion Lannister, you've got Cersei Lannister. They're non-combat units. They'll be in that side, and they politicize for you, and you give them edge in the board game. So I love that part of that game.
yeah, I agree.
And we
That's a
got
very,
Wilson
very
in the
good aspect.
house.
Yeah, Mr.
Wilson!
Wilson,
Hi.
the
Wilson, kompleto
non-tabletop,
tayo. Let's go.
Sorry,
Good
Wilson,
sorry,
the
morning,
sorry,
sir.
non-tabletop
sorry na.
player in the game.
Hi.
Wilson, why don't you give a short
Go, go,
introduction to
go.
the listeners? Like, tell us who this Wilson
Ako,
character is.
hi.
Why
Hi.
is he? Oh,
Okay, so first, mag-apologize muna ako, nastorbo ko yung usap nyo, your topic. So yeah, I'm Wilson Alinea, one of the admins of Philippine Tados, and siguro people know me as well as in the painting style of weathering. I mean, weathering mecha, sci-fi, mostly in 3D printing now. Pero pagdating dito sa usapan na to ngayon regarding sa mga licensed games, yan, wala akong alam dyan. Yun. Mostly maasahan nyo ako pagdating sa pagpe-paint, pero sa games, wala.
yeah. So Wilson is
Yes.
here
So
as a
supposedly,
function of a learner, as a perspective of someone new to the game. So
Yes.
pare
actually,
Nation, magtanong ka lang.
Perspective
Ask us
na,
questions.
per-
As
yeah,
a
perspective na
student.
mabubudol nyo. Something na
Yes, actually,
gano'n.
Yan.
Siguro you have to
Yeah.
convince me.
totoo yan, totoo yan. That's the reason why we're doing this actually, is we want to get Wilson into these games. Para gagastos siya ng
and
gagastos.
it,
Yeah.
Yeah, and my final
Actually,
point
I
about
think it's a,
di ba
my
Josh,
final
sorry,
nag-message
point
ako
sorry,
sa'yo,
actually
go ahead.
about
nakita ko yung gawa
Song
mo.
of Ice and Fire is about that. Kasi
Oo.
Yeah.
it's
Nakita
it's
ko yung
it's
gawa ni Josh
actually
na Magneto. So, so parang sabi ko, konti na lang. Konti na lang.
Small, small push, small push.
but it's actually like quite difficult as well to get into these games, especially in the Philippine context where everyone is either playing Warhammer or everyone's either playing Star Wars Legion. So when you do get into a licensed game, it's hard when you're the only one playing it. So like when I got into A Song of Ice and Fire, I was only playing with three people. So if I get Wilson to get into A Song of Ice and Fire, he's gonna be the fourth person to get into that. Because that's also one of the challenges. Besides, if you love the lore, it's not enough because you also have to find like another player who loves the lore and also loves to paint and collect at the same time, which is a very rare commodity that at least in my circle. Kaya when you were talking about Cthulhu, Milo, sabi ko, that's a good game to get into because you don't have to find other friends to play and have fun with your hobby. But like
Cthulhu is
we
your
can talk a
only
little bit
friend,
Kayo
the
ang
about
only
Cthulhu.
friend you need. Cthulhu is the only friend you need.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Well, so
but yeah,
another closing part of A Song on Ice and Fire is that you can choose out of 9 factions, and then you don't have to get all of them unless you're a crazy guy, which I know one person like Mr. J. Estaris, if you're watching. um,
yeah,
but
and
but for
the map is
example,
not that big as well.
yeah,
Our
yeah. So you can
our
choose to
our
say,
beloved
I'm
Coach
just gonna,
Saint.
yeah. So if you're just going for Lannisters, go for Lannisters, and you can stay in that lane for. And there's a lot of variety in your army, so that's already fine. 9 factions is a lot of options to choose from.
So they
If you're
also have the
planning to get into
assassin,
it
right?
now,
They
yeah,
have
they have like
Usap
three
and the
factions
assassin.
that could like jump into the other ones. If you're planning to
Yeah.
get into it now, there is like an update with the game that came out February 28th. So the rules have changed for the third time. And then if you want to learn about it without buying it, you can download the War Council app. All the miniatures you can buy are there. All the rules are there, and all the gaming aids are there. So you can technically learn and play the game without the miniatures with that app. So I've heard someone say that I don't have money to buy the miniatures. They'll just draw squares and use that as the templates, and they'll use the app to guide them. That's a possibility. So if you're interested, War Council app is the the boodle entry to A Song of Ice and Fire. You can see all the miniatures you can buy there, and you can also build your own armies in that app. It's a great app, super great app.
So from a very medieval and low fantasy flavor, let's turn over to Josh, who has a very interesting and exciting lore-based game.
Indeed. Hello. Well, I'm the one who recommended this episode, so malamang I have something to talk about. So if people who know me know na for the past, oh gosh, half a year, past half a year or something like that, I've been doing nothing but painting this one game called Marvel Crisis Protocol, and it has consumed my life. So ayun, as the name suggests, no, it's a Marvel game. It's based on the Marvel series.
So you have
Uh,
Superman, Wonder Woman,
yeah,
Aquaman.
Batman, Green Lantern, all that. Yeah, Marvel. No,
No,
but
no, no.
it's actually a good splash of a good splash of sources. Now, it's not just based on the comics. I mean, obviously, the MCU, the movies play a big part in it too. The popularity, like it came out in 2019, around the same time na um, Endgame came out, so that really built up the hype for it. Now, oh, it's a skirmish game with Marvel superheroes. Ooh, everyone's interested in that all of a sudden. So, certainly the movies help, and there are influences from the movies, obviously the comics, TV shows that have popped up in recent years and from the 90s, from the X-Men sort of. So a whole bunch of stuff to draw from. So what is it in essence? It's a skirmish war game. It's You're building up squads of characters from specific factions from the comics that people grew up with and people are familiar with from the get go. So you have your mainstays, you have your Avengers, you have your X-Men, you have your um ano pa ba? You have your Defenders, you have your A-Force, your Shield, Hydra, all of that. So all of these
Hail Hydra.
factions that, what?
Hail Hydra. They actually have
Hail
Hail
Hydra,
Hydra.
indeed. Hail
Actually,
Hydra.
this is a number one recommendation for Wilson because he loves Marvel. So this would be my
Uh,
recommendation
Actually,
poodle for him.
yes, very much so. Um, so they're different factions now, and you're building up a squad of 10 heroes, 10 characters, and in a game you can field. It's a point based game, so you can you know there's a certain point limit, so you might not always bring those 10 characters. You might bring four, you might bring five, you might bring six. Typical skirmish game, but it has that added benefit of it being based on comics, very famous series. So how does the gameplay work?
Josh,
Uh,
Josh,
yeah.
for the benefit of the non heavy board gamers or war gamers,
I would have.
what do you mean
Sorry,
by a
I ran into
skirmish
a
game?
fellow Tano.
Hello, hi
Oi,
guys.
oi, hello.
Yeah, hi. Yeah,
Sakto,
yeah, I'm
dude.
with my family. Yeah, it's my family.
Sakto. We're talking about
Sige,
Marvel
sige.
Crisis Protocol.
Bye-bye. He's actually a Marvel Crisis Protocol player. Great
Yeah,
painter also,
great.
award-winning
He,
painter.
he won. He won an IPMS last year.
Yeah, he did. With She-Hulk, which is a really good
She-Hulk,
model.
yeah.
Oh my god.
With She-Hulk. Speaking of, no, but sorry, Milo, you were asking.
Yeah, for the benefit of the non war gamers and heavy war gamers, what is meant by a skirmish game?
Okay, so what is a skirmish game? So in tabletop wargaming, you have the regular army games, which is where you will field an army. It's like multiple squads of characters, multiple vehicles, a huge body count normally. Like in any army, like for example, if I'm playing Warhammer, I'll bring maybe anywhere from 30 to 50 models on one side for a regular sized game, right? Skirmish games are a lot smaller than that. They're meant to represent like squad combat. So it's not entire regiments, entire legions fighting against each other. It's squads fighting against each other. So anywhere from like 3 to 6 or 7 miniatures per side, and that's all you're going to field. So it's a lot less compared to army games, and it gives you that added benefit of being able to complete a model quicker as opposed to painting huge squads. Like I can easily crank out one model in a couple of hours compared to like 10 in a squad, right? So it gives you that benefit, and that's where that's an example. That's where Marvel Crisis Protocol falls under. So
So
gameplay
in a
wise,
way, the tuition fee is lower, right? In the sense that tuition fee in terms of money, because you don't
hmm,
need 30, 40, 50, but also tuition fee in terms of painting them, right? You're not gonna paint
hmm,
30, 40, 50. You only need to paint five, six, and then you're ready to game.
hmm, exactly. Um, it's much quicker to paint. As a painter, for me, um, it's important for me as well because as a painter, I'm able to stretch my painting skills because I'm not painting the same model every time. I'm painting different models because they're all individual heroes, which means I get to apply and study different techniques each time I paint something. I'm not painting the same armor. It's all going to be blue. The trim is all going to be gold. No, it's different. Like I could be painting Spider-Man, who has a blue and red color scheme, and then after that, I could be painting the Hulk, who has a purple and green color scheme. So you're as a painter, I'm able to exercise different painting styles and different color combinations that I normally couldn't if I played large army games. So great benefit for miniature painter.
I
Um,
actually agree heavily, man. I mean, as all of us are painters, I think that's where Marvel Protocol shines. If you spend like a week painting a squad of Warhammer miniatures and you get them at subpar, and you
mm,
apply the same amount of work on one miniature on Marvel Protocol, the output is so much nicer and there's so much.
mm,
It's like you can treat each gaming piece as a display piece at the same time. I think that's where it
yeah,
shines, skirmish games.
definitely.
There's
And
there's
that's
no there's no umai factor.
Yeah, there is no Umay faction,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
that's the key thing for me. I like putting a lot of detail in models, which has been something of a detriment to me because I would spend so long painting grunts, and then they would just die off the table, right? But with this one, I spend a lot of time on the individual models. They don't necessarily die first round because they have a lot of durability. It's meant to be, because it's a squad game. The HP, the health ratio is a lot higher compared to how it would normally be in larger army games, and it gives me that benefit of having a completed, nice looking model in relatively shorter amount of time. I'm able to paint a Marvel Crisis Protocol mini in like a day. Compare that to me painting a squad in like a week. So much quicker reward as well. But going back to the gameplay. So yeah, it's a skirmish game. You build a squad of characters from your favorite Marvel comics or your Marvel property, and it's a game of controlling objectives, securing, extracting objectives. You're going across the battlefield. Um, a really fun aspect of it is that you get to throw buildings. Like certain characters have the ability to pick up object. The terrain is all interactive. It's not like in other games where the terrain is just scenery, or it, like example, certain terrain will slow you down. In this one, it's like, oh, is this terrain slowing you down? Okay, pick it up and throw it at someone. It's something you can do, so it's very interactive. Um, you build a squad, and the characters that you put into that squad. What I really like about the army building um, part of this game is when you build a squad of heroes, anyone can play with each other. You don't need to have everyone be from the same faction. You can
Oh, I
mix and
didn't
match.
know that. You could like mix and match. Wow.
Okay, here's the thing though. Here's the thing. You can mix and match. Like, let's say I want Captain America to be teamed up with Ghost Rider, Red Skull, and let's say Venom. You can all play them in one squad. That's fine. But here's the thing. If you don't play the game with sorry, if your squad is a set affiliation, like let's say if the people
X
in your
Men.
squad are majority X-Men or majority Avengers, they get a certain buff. Like,
I see.
So
Okay.
majority, you don't have pure. Like okay lang na majority siya. Pag tas may isang outlier, you still get the benefit.
it depends. It depends. Like there's some, for example, um, the rule kasi is 51% of your squad has to be from a specific affiliation in order for you to get that buff or to get that affiliation. So, for example, if I'm running a five-man squad of Avengers, three people need to be Avengers, whereas the two other people do not need to be Avengers. Something like that.
That's pretty interesting, Josh. Because I'm probably a lore based guy, and even when I play some games like in Magic the Gathering, I'm more of the janky kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
guy. But here, what you're telling us in Marvel Crisis Protocol, there's an opportunity for min max players to
Yeah,
really get into that, and then pick and choose the characters and make a well oiled squad.
yeah, definitely.
Interesting.
That's the thing, because like, um, you can mix and match characters. Like there are times that you don't even need the squad buff. Like certain characters' rules on their own are good enough that you don't need the buff when they're paired with other characters. Of course, the buff is helpful because a lot of them actually are incredible. Like sometimes kind of OP as well. Like I enjoy some of them. Like I have I play right now. I play two factions currently. It's gonna grow definitely. Knowing me, my factions are gonna grow. But my two main factions right now are Web Warriors, which is Spider-Man and friends, and the Brotherhood of Mutants with Magneto and his cavalcade of mutant revolutionaries. The buff that the buff that the web warriors, that the spider friends do, is they get to reroll, no, get to reroll defense dice, and they also get to cause slow condition sa opponents. For Magneto naman, for the Brotherhood, there are two squad leaders. I have Magneto and Mystique. Mystique Mystique is good for objective controlling. She lets you put a token down so that you don't need to be there to secure an objective. You can move around the board easily. And Magneto is all about destroying shit, and giving out power. Because like in the game, in order for you to use superpowers, you need energy. So you have a regular attack, and then you also have like superpower based attacks.
Like
Um,
mana.
Something like that. So power conservation is a very important thing in the game,
like
and
like the
Magneto is amazing at
Force.
that. Magneto's entire shtick is that he breaks stuff, and whenever he breaks stuff, people will gain energy from him doing that.
I have to
All
say,
right, cool.
it's very refreshing to hear that it's faction specific stuff can give you buffs, but you can compete without following the faction specific rules. Because coming from like a Warhammer perspective, you are
Mm.
so limited to stick to that one faction that you're always
Yeah,
painting over and over and over again. And it's
Yeah.
kind of
yeah.
cool
I
that you
mean,
can mix and match your armies. I did not know that. So you're saying, Josh, competitive, if I don't do single faction, I could still win a game or two?
You can, yeah, you can.
Damn.
You'll need to be very tactical about it though. Like I've
totally
always said,
different from, say, A Song of Ice and Fire, right? Song of Ice and Fire, just you stick to a faction and a few neutrals, or you go pure neutral, but you can't
Mm.
go, have a Lannister, a Stark, and a Martell in one army.
Yeah,
It's very interesting to see
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
But there's that
Cool.
neutral faction that you mentioned, Bio, that free folk one. Oh, sorry, the neutral ones. Those are interesting too, because like Ramsey could go to different armies, and like you can have like a little customization with a Lannister versus Lannister army because one has Ramsey in it, one doesn't have, which is
Yeah,
kind of
but it
cool.
doesn't have that. It's still cool, but I don't think it has that same flexibility as Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Ah, definitely, definitely, definitely.
and
But
the thing with using splash characters, no, you putting characters that are not in affiliation, it can actually add to the benefit. It can actually be a benefit for those, for that specific faction, which is what I do for my web warriors, for my Spider-Man friends. Um, okay, so every faction, like any other game, has their pros and cons, has something they're really good at and something that they need to work on. So, just to give an example, my web warriors, they're all about objective stealing. They're there to get capture the flag and run away and make sure no one can catch them. That's their entire shtick. Or making sure that the opponent cannot get the objective. Like they have special rules about about opponents dropping objectives, not being able to score objectives, while they get it instead and then run away. Because web warriors are very fast.
Okay.
The problem with web warriors is they're very fast, but once you tie them down, they will splat. They'll go down fast, and they lack long range. That's the thing. They're all about melee and running away, but they're not very shooty. So what I do is I add Rocket Raccoon from the Guardians of the Galaxy into my web warriors, so he'll provide the firepower.
cool.
That
Okay.
kind of
So
stuff.
Actually,
Yeah.
before we handle it over to Mars, I have one final question. Who is the producer of Marvel Crisis Protocol?
Atomic Mass Games.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They
Actually,
also
one
do.
thing I wanted
It sounds
to
very
point out.
niche.
Well, now it's not anymore so niche because they grew because of that game. They're actually expanding into Shatterpoint, if I'm not mistaken, which is the
Yeah.
Star Wars version of Marvel Crisis Protocol. Not to be confused with Star Wars Legion, which is the war game experience. But Shatterpoint seems like the equivalent of Marvel Protocol in terms of squad-based small skirmish combat because the scale is the same. It's actually a little bit
Yeah.
larger than
Yeah.
miniatures, but I don't think you can have Grievous side with Anakin in a match. I think that would be great though if you could, but I don't. But I do. I am interested in picking up a
That's
copy just because the
very much
painting
not
you can
canon.
apply
Very much
painting.
not canon, Louis. Very much. Yeah,
Very
no,
much
no, no.
not easy
What
to
on
do.
internet?
Okay, how about you, Mars? What game that is lore based that are you into and can introduce to our friends?
Uh, like, because my majority of the games that I'm currently into right now are like TTRPGs. I haven't really like immersed. I feel bad. I haven't immersed myself too much in the mini scene, in a sense, because my head's there in
So,
TTRPGs. Yeah,
better
I'm supposed to
question,
talk.
Mars. Does all the
Yeah.
jargon we're talking about does it convince you to get into any of these games? Are we doing a good job at
I would
convincing anyone?
say that in terms of like the appeal to get me into it, like it, the core point of it is that it's much easier for it to be like if you're part of the fandom. Like for me, I'm a fan already of Game of Thrones. We're not gonna talk about the later seasons. Like the
Yeah.
first yeah the first two books are I read the first two books and I've seen the early there was promise until season 5. But we're not gonna talk about we're not gonna talk about the pain. But
If you
so
were to
like
start a
I
faction, what faction would you choose?
oh easy Lannister.
Yes.
Oh,
No, I will.
the
In
asshole
my
race.
defense, to be fair, I played the living card game of Game of Thrones, and the Lannisters
Love it.
are just
That's
so
a good
good.
one. That's a good card game, by the way. I love
Yeah,
that card game.
yeah. And the fact that they have a free version where you can play it online, where you don't have to buy the cards just to test the decks, it's really nice.
I did not know that. You should link that shit. I did not know that. Oh my god.
Yeah, they have a way to
We
play
should
it
play it.
without
We should
buying
play
the
it. I
cards.
also played that game. Did you know that? I also played that
Actually,
game. I was more of
you
a
we should stream
Greyjoy player.
that game. Like if all of us
Yes,
play, that could be 5 players, dude. We can
there's a
stream
way to play
that.
it. There's a way to play it free online. Yeah, and then they
All
have
right.
it's kind of like untap or like dual. Like they do have like this phase,
Okay.
and this phase, so it's really clean
Okay.
for a free
Nice.
game.
Nice.
But
Nice.
anyways,
Interesting.
but
So
going back to my
I've got a
point,
question for. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
just going back to the point that I think the reason why a lot of people are like the licensed, like the media movies and stuff, like the reason why they're getting into games is that they already have a good fan base, and then they know they're gonna that when they put it on like a
It's gonna
game,
sell.
like it's gonna sell. So it's like for me, I'm
Yeah.
already sold on the Cthulhu Must Die and the Game of Thrones. Marvel, it's a weak point because I'm not really a fan. I love the movies; they made me
Hmm.
cry, but it's not enough to. It's like there's interest, but because of me having stronger interest on the other games, I'm like okay, I'm probably
Fair
gonna look
enough.
into this. So it's like
I do
it
have to
depends.
say though,
Yeah,
like most of the games that we talk about, they have a very very simpler and easy to uh, learn rules compared to the
yeah,
larger franchises and the larger games. So like I feel like even if you're not a war gamer but you're coming from a board game perspective, the treatment is the same. The rule books are like less than 60 pages and the replayability is like a board game. I feel like it's easy for someone to get into the games that we mentioned at the very least, especially if it's SEMO.
Yeah. Yeah. What I noticed is that these lore-based games do tend to be more, I would say, newbie friendly, knowing that you're more of a fan of the lore, and maybe you've dabbled in some
Agree.
board games. So let me make it easy for you. Um, versus say buying that whole codex of a Warhammer and go flip through pages, and there's just so many,
Agree.
so many maths there, right? So I've got a question for, I guess, primarily for those who have doing lore games. Um, what is the downside of these games? What's the challenge? What's the downside? What's the thing you don't like?
Wait, what do you mean by the lore games? Like the ones we've been just discussing right now?
Yeah, I mean the things that we said. Like for example, so I'll just run down some of the games we said. We got Cthulhu Death May Die. We have Song of Ice and Fire. We've got Marvel Crisis Protocol. We've mentioned Star Wars Legion. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was also mentioned. Judge Dredd was mentioned. So all of these games that are based from a movie, a comic book, or a book. Like I know there's a Brandon Sanderson base game already. Hint, hint. I know, Juice, you're a fan of that series. Um, but what's the challenge of these games
It's really,
or
for me,
this
it's
lore-based games?
accessibility. It's accessibility. Like, look, no one really carries it locally, and if ever they do, it's hard to find someone you can play it with. So if I had my way,
Mm.
I would own all of these things, and I would like try to convince my girlfriend to play with me, which is a challenge in it of itself. So I'm so happy, Milo, you play A Song of Ice and Fire. To be honest,
All right, how about
Um,
you, Josh? What has been challenging for you?
I guess for me, coming from the painting side, it can be a challenge on multiple fronts. Because one, um, Marvel Crisis. I'm gonna go for both Marvel Crisis Protocol and Star Wars Legion in my example, because they're vastly different in terms of painting and building. So, Marvel Crisis Protocol, they have amazing models. They have really good looking models. The problem with these models is that um they can also be very fragile if you're not careful. As miniature
Mm.
painters, people who have been doing this for a while, we already know how to handle our minis. We already know where to cut. We already know where to glue. We already know that stuff. New painters, new hobbyists might not. And they might accidentally break certain parts off. Because MCP is kind of notorious for having very small and finicky parts to glue and handle. People who play Marvel Crisis Protocol, if you're in this chat, you know what I'm talking about. Star Lord. My God, Star Lord. Star Lord's head. Star Lord's head comes in three pieces. It's like yung sides
what
ng
the
mask
hell?
niya.
Really?
Yeah, sides ng
What the
mask niya,
hell?
Wait,
and then hair.
what scale are we talking about? 28?
No, we're talking a
20,
train scale. The train scale.
20, I don't know, 28, 32. I forgot the scale of
It,
this.
it's not it's
Okay,
not
that's still
32
small.
mm. It's bigger
Yeah,
than 32 mm. It's
yeah.
bigger
It's
than
not. It's not.
32
Oh,
mm.
okay, okay, okay.
It's not heroic scale by any stretch of the imagination. They're
Yeah,
very well
it's
proportioned.
actually realistic. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, realistic proportions. But um, yeah, that's the thing. Parts that can break
like a
easily,
bigger
parts that are
model.
really small to glue. Um, and a lot of them, they like doing very dynamic poses. And what I mean by that is they're floating off the ground, and the only thing that is holding them to the base is a thin strip of energy. Storm.
Mm.
Holy craps! I am so
Oh
scared
man,
to build Storm because her model is just her floating off the ground, and then the only thing holding her up are like small lightning bolts. I have no
Mm.
idea how that's not gonna snap eventually.
join
So
Philippine Tados
that
if you want to learn
So,
how to
so
build and
for
paint your
for me, I
miniatures.
so for me, I agree with you, Louis. Those are the two main challenges. The access to these games because it's a rather niche, or in the Philippines. Although thankfully Amazon now delivers to the Philippines. The other one is I agree with you, the community. So unless you have a core group that's open and is also a fan of the lore, you'll have to find a group or groups that does it. And thankful for Facebook, you'll find a niche group about it. Like there's a group for Marvel Crisis Protocol. There's a group for A Song of Ice and Fire. That's Philippine based. For me, one of my challenges is continuity. And what I mean about that is if these games don't become popular enough, you will run
Right.
into the problem of the producer potentially discontinuing the game, such as what you mentioned earlier, Harry Potter.
Right.
Tell me about Harry
Right.
Potter was discontinued.
It's like falling in love with a series and then cutting, and then after season two, it's gone.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, and especially if it's a game based on PvP, meaning player versus player, and there's a meta about it. You get kind of like into it. You go all in, and then suddenly it's out, and then people are starting to wane, and you get less and less of the community. And guess what? You've got a game that's collecting dust in your shelf.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's true.
Right.
That's
Well,
true.
For
speaking of
real.
communities, if you want to do Star Wars Legion and Song of Ice and Fire, look up Gears and Games. If you want to do Marvel Crisis Protocol, look up the Neutral Grounds groups. Those are, I think,
Hmm.
the more active licensed games here in the
Yeah.
Philippines.
Ang I see a lot of players for MCP mainly in Neutral Grounds and in Dragon Forge in UP Town Center. Although, some people as well in the GNG group also play it. So, you know, it's good
If
to be
you
in.
Yeah.
if you're starting a gaming group, you should do what Paulo Garces did, the guy who I showed in the video earlier for the people who are watching. He made a Facebook chat group called MCP, and if he hears you say the word Marvel Crisis Protocol and you don't even buy it, he will add you into the chat group. He will force you into that. Like, I think
Yeah.
all of us are actually part of the chat group, and a lot of us don't still play it. But he's just
Yeah,
trying to
but I
force
also,
advertise.
and I'd like to give a shout out to our friends in Cebu, who's starting like a BattleTech group. Shout out
Oh,
to
nice.
Davao. There's a shop that just opened up by, I think it was our friend Kelso who started
Kelso,
that, and I think they do
yay!
That's
have Marvel
also,
Crisis Protocol there.
Yes, yes,
So
they
oh,
do.
they're starting these small communities, and I'm hoping that it becomes bigger and bigger because,
oh man.
especially in the province, especially non-Metro Manila folks, there's this
Yeah.
Agree.
perspective that it's an expensive hobby, right? Um, and they don't know where they to buy, they don't know where to play.
Yeah. I want to share like an add-on because I am from Davao, and, Kelso. I know Kelso. There's a fun story for that. Like when
Woo!
Louis was sharing about like, finding the right group, like I felt that pain on a core level, like in my soul, because like the sad thing about living like not in Metro Manila, or like if you're in the south side or in the province,
Mm,
is there's not much hobby stores. There's not much hobby groups like the big ones in Manila. And then like sometimes it's just a bunch of people going to friends' houses. And like Kelso really started an initiative. It's like he's really cool that every Saturday and Sunday he just grabbed people and then taught them how to play board games. He was like, "Why is there no war room here? Why is there no? I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna make it happen." So it's like, and the fact that he every
Rest in peace,
weekend he
Warum.
would, yeah,
so
in
so does he
two
go like?
villages.
Would you
Yeah.
know? Would you like to know more about our Lord and Savior Cthulhu?
Always.
All right.
Yeah.
So hey, Wilson, you've been silent. Any questions for us?
yeah.
Hi.
Any
Mine is
questions?
Actually,
really
naikinig lang ako. Actually, I was listening lang kung ano yung parang mga insights niyo regarding sa game.
Ano
Although,
mga gusto mong
hindi
bilhin?
hindi pa rin ako mako-convince na kahit pa paano. Wait. So, bigyan ko nila kayo ng insight ko kung ano ba yung parang trip ko ng mga kasi di ako board game guy talaga eh. I grew up in Magic way back 90s pa, early 90s,
Yeah.
Magic
Yun.
cards.
OG.
Magic the Gathering.
RPGs, yan, RPG like the Robot Wars, FF Tactics, something na
Warhammer
mga alam mo
Underworlds
yun,
na yan.
parang ganon. Ganon yung mga trip kong laro. So I don't know if there's kung ganun yung style ko, ganun yung something na mga trip ko, what would you recommend ba? And how would I start? Parang paano ko magsa-start? Ano yung
It's
marirecommend nyo?
it's
Sige. I have an
Yeah,
answer
Warhammer
something
for
like
that.
yun
Underworld.
na parang yung hilig ko like
Uh, I have an
You know,
answer for
Kasi
that.
favorite ko talaga
as,
kasi Robot Wars. Yung mga
as
ganon,
someone,
yung parang mga Final Fantasy Tactics Robot Wars, yeah.
okay, you know what?
yon.
Ganito. Ganito. Um, as someone who has explicitly stated that you are this close to getting MCP minis or Marvel minis in general, I think one of these days I should set up a demo game for the Tado, for the administration.
Boom!
Para
For
lang
Wilson, a
Oh,
demo game for Wilson.
para lang ma-experience mo how this game plays. Kasi it's not just miniatures, it's also deck building eh, yung MCP.
Mm.
'Cause
Yes.
there's a hard aspect. But get back to your question on like um as a beginner and as someone um who's trying to get convinced now. Definitely playing the game or like viewing people playing it, have someone teach it for you is a great way to start. Um, Especially if you know that they already have ano if they already have an interest in it. Like I said, like it was mentioned before, no. The reason why people get into these games is because they already know the IP. May interest na sila. They might not necessarily be players, gamers, but the IP matters a lot to them. And I know I gave the example kanina that Marvel Crisis Protocol minis might not be the easiest to get into, but I will tell you what is easy to build and paint, and that's Star Wars Legion. Because Star Wars Legion uses soft plastic, so you don't need to worry about stuff breaking or stuff falling apart. And the variety is large enough na you're not just playing with stormtroopers and rebels. You're playing with clones, you're playing with droids and all of that. So yun, have someone show it, I guess.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I have some suggestions for you, Wilson. So, for example, you mentioned a couple of lores already, like Magic the Gathering. You mentioned some RPGs and also some Robot Wars, diba? So, Magic the Gathering actually has a board game, miniatures board game, but I think
Yes.
it's discontinued. Um,
Yeah.
in the level of gaming fun, I would say it's not the most mature board game out there, but it does give you the flavor of Magic the Gathering. Unfortunately, it's discontinued. So if you get to like it, it's not going to be that. Your fun will be short lived, if you will. If you want to go RPG,
Mm.
there's a lot of Dungeons and Dragons Adventures board game. So these are all standalone board games. It has that feel of leveling up your characters, putting equipments, although in a limited fashion. There are even non Dungeons and Dragons board games that are out there, but they're not lore based, meaning they're standalone. You can get into D&D board games. I have them all, and I use the minis also for my D&D sessions because it's very convenient that if you're looking for a particular monster like a Grell or a or a Stone Golem, it actually fits what is in the RPG manuals. So yeah, for anything on robots, one of the growing um, or at least not growing rather, one of the comeback games today, if you're not familiar, is BattleTech.
Actually,
It's one
marami
of the
nag-i-assign
favorites
sa
in.
Battletech.
Yeah.
Sobra.
Because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can imagine
BattleTech's
kasi
good.
gunpla ka eh. That's like the closest
Mm,
recommendation anyone would think of for Wilson talaga.
Kasi ako parang
Robot.
way back, Front Mission, yan, yung mga favorite kong laro nun eh.
Oh,
Yung,
Front Mission is so good.
oh, run! Yes,
yan,
Armored
mga
Core.
ganun.
I have a feel you feel. So yeah, Robotech is the closest to it. There was a Robotech. There is a Robotech game, but to the point of Louis, access here is so hard. And again, community is also very small, so it's gonna be hard for you to find Robotech fans out there. But
But
BattleTech
actually,
is
this
huge
slowly
today.
since Alpha Strike came out, it's slowly getting
Yes.
me in. Mikey Cuento and Juno Alcantara have been the active tados building and painting. So baka if Wilson tinopak ka, you should reach out to those two tados.
I actually, I actually do want to learn BattleTech. I'm in the same situation as Wilson when it comes to BattleTech, because it's a franchise I know nothing about, but I always see people post it, and so it's big mechs, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I would like big mechs.
Actually, what I find cool about the BattleTech ones is it plays like MechWarrior, the video game, where you can target parts of the miniature and shut down the left arm, the right arm, the
Oh,
legs, which
legit!
I find it interesting because it's a miniature game. I don't know if the new edition, like Alpha Strike, is the same, but the old edition, you literally had a card layout of your mech and stats of your left arm, right arm, legs. So
Oh,
it was
So
so
wait,
that's correct.
interesting. It's like that is
So I
interesting.
tried. So I
whoa,
tried
teka, teka.
BattleTech. There's one that you can buy, which is, or rather, there's one set of rules that is very close to the original ones. To your point, Louis, that it's you will have the parts. But what I understand about Alpha Strike, and I can be corrected here, is that they simplified that version, so you don't have
They
to go
streamlined
for
it.
the specific. Yeah, they streamlined it because the original rules could be clunky compared to the other board games.
Pretty
But
niche.
what I like about BattleTech in terms of miniatures is that the miniatures themselves are not faction specific. If you follow some of the new rules, no? So unlike, say for example, a Song of Ice and Fire, say for example the Knights of Casterly Rock are miniatures that are only meant for Lannisters. But in BattleTech, each model or each unit is essentially, you don't have well, unless you become so serious about the lore, like you want to be a House Davion or House I forgot the other houses there. If you want to follow that, then sure. But you can also come up with your own house and your own faction and paint them the way you
Mhm.
want. That's fine.
Because they're like cars that they can just anyone can drive, anyone can use, right? Anyone can
Yeah.
customize. Doesn't matter the faction. But my answer for Wilson is actually not part of these unlicensed games because there's actually a game, Wilson, that Warhammer released called Warhammer Underworlds, and they made it specifically targeting Magic the Gathering players. You
Mm.
buy a set of three miniatures, and that's your only miniature. And
Mm.
then the upkeep is you buy booster packs and decks to customize the deck building options that augment your three miniatures. So pare, you just have to build and paint once, and then puro cards ka na lang. So it's very it's very Magic the Gathering oriented.
Okay.
I want
I
to
don't
ask.
play it, but because
I want, I want to ask.
it's the closest one.
I want to ask because as someone mentioned in the comments, um, I'm sorry it doesn't say your name here. It just says Facebook user. Pero sabi daw yung BattleTech low barrier entry yung
It's
cost. So how
Juno.
much are we talking?
It's Juno. It's Juno.
Ah,
Oh, is it
okay.
Juno?
I believe the a box of an Alpha Strike, which contains about, and I can be corrected, 8 to 12 miniatures, which is good for a lance already. A lance is the term for a warband. I believe that's about 3,500, 3,600 range of price
Mm.
for a good number of miniatures. I think 12.
Mm.
So that's the range. I bought a smaller set. It's called the beginner box, BattleTech. It had two miniatures and about six cardboard miniatures. It's good for a
Mm.
flavor. It's 1,600, but now I regret it. I should have gotten the Alpha Strike box because there's more miniatures to it.
Mm. Mm. No, that's not bad.
Yeah, not bad compared to other core box of games.
Yeah, not compared to other. Yeah, that's oh god, that's true. Ang core
Which
set
which what's a
ng
good point? What is a good um, entry point, tuition fee, if you will,
core set.
for those who are for a lore based game.
Me personally, I think, um, and this might just be bias, but like me personally, Marvel Crisis Protocol has an amazing starter set. It comes with 10 characters, so you have 5 Avengers and 5 Cabal. So yung Cabal is yung basta villains, so Red Skull, Ultron, Doc Ock, that sort of people. But what sets it apart for me is that MCP comes with terrain. And I'm not just talking like signposts here and there, but buildings and cars and lampposts. So like actual chunky terrain to go along with like really detailed miniatures. And syempre, it's something you can also split with a friend. Like someone takes the villain, someone takes the hero. So and that's not bad for like 5K.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'd
Hmm.
actually rephrase Milo's question because good budgets or good tuitions is very subjective depending on where you are financially. But I would answer just to describe the buy-in for Game of Thrones. You get 56 miniatures per start, or thereabouts, 50 to 40 miniatures per starter set. and the starter set is enough to make you play months worth of games without having to
Yeah.
upgrade. Actually, so that's something to consider, and it's around the same price as
Mm.
Protocol. Because actually, to be fair, most C1 games are priced similarly, with a
Hmm.
similar amount of plastic coming in. So fair enough, fair to say, C1 has sort of hit that sweet spot of getting people into games really easy, if I could
Fair
ask.
enough. Fair enough. I'm a little different. All right, so I'm heavy in lore. So I go all in some of these games, heavy. And I get lock, stock, and barrel for these Kickstarters, man. Even the add-ons, I'm crazy on that one. So
Sorry,
I would
man, but I
say
have to
yes.
just mention when I saw you with your Lannister armies, it looked like you had like three starter sets of Lannisters
No,
beside
just
you. You
one,
had
just one,
so many.
just one.
Yeah, it's just a Kickstarter one. That's why it's a lot, right? It's
Yes,
an
yes, yes,
insane
yes,
amount.
yes.
Like, wow, man. I'm impressed.
No, but say for example, I'm going to mention very niche lore, and for those who know these lores, hats off to you. One is Chronicles of Hate. It's also a Kickstarter Simon game, and that I believe I went all in on that one, and it's based on a graphic novel. And another game that is based on a graphic novel and very niche graphic novels would be Court of the Dead. And again, because I'm into the lore, more into that, my tuition fee is different. But the thing is, these games are once you buy it, you're done. Don't expect any expansions. It's a self-contained game.
Very nice. Very nice. I'm looking forward
Hey,
to Wilson and Mars
Nice,
getting into one
nice.
of these games.
what is our time frame
So yeah,
for
di ba,
Usap Tado?
Yeah,
We're
are we willing to
currently at
push it to 2 hours? Are we good at 1 hour?
no.
No.
We need to
I,
stop at
yeah,
nine
actually medyo
thirty.
hindi niyo pa rin ako mako-convince sa konti mag-game.
Yeah,
1 hour.
but the other way for you to, Winston, to look at it is, thankfully in the
1 hour
internet
actually.
age, you can you can just go to YouTube, look for a particular lore you like or type of genre, and there will be some games there. And thankfully enough, there are unboxing, there are playthroughs, there are reviews. It will give you that flavor of, hey, I kind of like that game. Oh, those miniatures are amazing. So sometimes I do that too, especially those that are mainstream retail-based games. Like, oh, I'm interested in Star Wars Legion. Can I take a look at a video? Oh, wow, there's a video about it. They'll give you that flavor. So it's not something that you have to pay anything yet. And then if you want to get to the next level, go to some of our gaming stores like Years and Games, Fortress, Neutral Grounds, and if you chance upon some players there, you know, take the courage and say, hey, I want to know more about the game. Can I just observe? And then these guys they won't bite, so they'll definitely, and because it's a niche game, they're more than likely to try to entertain your questions because you
They
are
need you
one
more
chance
than
of
you
getting
need them,
another.
man.
That is true.
Yeah, but I
More
mean,
players.
for the past couple of months, Neutral Grounds and other groups have been holding open demos for MCP. Um, this one that I went to nung last year, we were in Black Scoop in Shaw Boulevard. We played in a cafe just to show it off to people, and people did come. People did see how the game was played. I think uh, events like that, the community, especially niche communities, have to come together to like show that stuff off. Because yeah, that's how we really get new people in it, and especially if they already have that hook na, oh, it's from this franchise that you love.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
To actually,
really want to do. I really want to do a demo day for MCP for you guys para lang makita nyo.
I think you're at the right
We can
idea. Like to
we,
echo
we
what
we can call it
Uncle Atom
Doodle
always
Day.
says. Yeah, and to echo what Uncle Atom says, you have to be a gaming advocate of what you do. So like your idea of doing a gaming demo is right up that alley. So feeling ko, we need to go to Davao and bring
Yes.
Marvel Crisis Protocol to Mars's house, and also make a trip
Yes.
to Cubao Expo and bring Marvel Crisis Protocol to Wilson. We'll make them borrow
Uh,
an army already, so the buy-in and the
we
effort
actually,
is zero, man.
totoo yan, totoo yan. Like,
but we
we
don't have
could,
to go far, right? We don't have to go far because I believe Bacon is just around the corner,
Yeah.
yep.
and
Yeah,
you've
so
got
Mars is flying here. Are
board
you
gamers
flying
there.
here, Mars?
I mean, pwede naman. Bago decide
Oh
to
shit!
fly.
Oh
When
shit!
is
All right,
when
that's good
is when
news.
is bacon? Sorry, for people who are not familiar, what is bacon and when is bacon?
It's
So Bacon
crispy.
is like
It's
the
good.
local. It's the local board game convention held here by VPN, which is Variable Play Network, a local Facebook group, also like us, but their focus is tabletop games, and they've been hosting Bacon for the last how many years? 5 years? 3 years? I am not so sure.
Except for the pandemic. Except for the pandemic.
Yeah, except for the pandemic. So they trial board games, they display board games. It's an interesting thing. I forgot what Bacon stands for actually.
Board games and
Yeah, together.
Enthusiasts
Yeah.
convention? I'm not so sure. Board games and enthusiasts, I'm not so sure. But look them up.
board
VPN
gamers.
Network and Bacons. Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll share the link. Sorry, Mars. When is Bacon 2023?
Me? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. We can ask
Well, stay tuned
Ron.
then. Stay tuned. We'll
Stay
we'll, we'll
tuned
post
to
it
the
in the
next.
materials. Yeah.
Last year, I remember Bacon being like what was it? May, something like that.
Mhm.
Uh, we'll
I
keep you
need to.
guys posted. Join our Facebook group, Philippine Dados. Bacon is also part of that group. And then we plan to stream every month, or we will try to stream
Yes, there will be
every
an
month.
attempt. There will be an
Yes,
attempt,
send
Yeah.
yes.
us suggestions on what you guys want us to talk about, ask us questions. We will try our best to be all complete with our opinionated opinions.
And just a
And
heads up for
maybe
people, for those who didn't catch the live stream, don't worry, we're gonna have this version, at least the less scuffed version, a lot more cuts and cleans, in Spotify. There's gonna be a Spotify link.
Woo! Thank you, Mars, Mother them, dead mother, for arranging this.
Really. And so, wait, you're saying Milo? Sorry, I was just plugging the podcast thing.
no,
That's
no. If we're
actually
gonna
all
do
good.
some,
That's all good. It's all good.
so if we're gonna do any closing, then my suggestion is that for the people in this, for the five of us who are here,
There,
make your spiel and selling point on some of the lore games that you like.
there we go.
Yeah.
Going by last
Good.
year. Sorry, off topic lang. Going off last year. Bacon was April last year.
Okay, so we should be
Too
nearing it
soon.
soon.
Yeah, we should ask the VPN people. Their plans. But why
Yeah.
don't you start, Josh? What's your tagline? What's your call to action to get people into Marvel Crisis Protocol?
Um, for me, if you're getting into the game, honestly, pick a faction you like. I'm sure you all have your favorite, your favorite groups, your favorite superhero teams. It's very easy to learn. It's one of those games that it's surprisingly very simple to learn. Like very, very intuitive gameplay. Where it gets meaty is the tactics and how you plan your moves around your opponent and your specific faction. But yun nga, pick your favorite team. More often than not, your favorite superhero team from Marvel is going to be in this game. Thunderbolts is coming out soon, I think.
Woo!
I'm gonna keep it simple for the Song of Ice and Fire. If you want to play tabletop miniature games and go dun, 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 dun,
Oh
dun,
yeah.
dun, 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 dun. That's the game for you. That's basically the most enjoyment that I get when I
Actually,
play that game.
I need to say this. I need to say this for posterity reasons. Last weekend, I was playing a game with Archie. Shout out to Archie. Hey, man. I was playing Brotherhood of Mutants. He was playing X-Men. Sir Freddy of Neutral Grounds was playing the X-Men theme song in the background. best experience.
Oh yeah, immersion is the best, man.
I lost that game horribly, by the way, but it was still fun.
Nice.
And to get people into Cthulhu, what would you have to say, Mr. Milo?
So all I need to say is
The game,
Cthulhu,
not the code.
Cthulhu, Fatagan. Cthulhu, Cthulhu, Fatagan. Fatagan,
Thanks for
Cthulhu.
clarifying. Thanks for clarifying.
And fans, you know what I'm saying. All right, I
Nice
guess
one.
that's
Nice.
that's an amazing first episode, Mars.
Thank you for
Thank you
everyone
for setting
who
this up.
joined. Thank you for the people on YouTube who commented. Thank you for people on Facebook
Yeah.
who are active. Please
Yeah,
follow our YouTube. Please follow our
thank,
Facebook
yeah,
groups.
thank you, Yan.
We
Thank
have a
you,
YouTube.
Jamil and
Oh,
and
we have a
and,
YouTube.
and Mikey. Yeah, we have a YouTube. Please like and subscribe for more content, live streams.
So that means we can come up with content that is not Usap Tado, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We can do
It
paint.
can be
We can do
other
painting
videos. Yeah,
videos.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Cool, cool,
Just
cool,
populate
cool,
it
cool,
with
cool.
what you guys want to do with it. It's there.
Actually, we can collaborate with my current channel also, I think. Like, I'll figure something out, but I know we can do collab posts, Mars.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yes,
sure.
yes. Yeah.
Ayun.
So
All right. Thank
All
you
Okay,
right.
so much.
close us
With that
off.
said, wait. How are we gonna close this? The usual 1, 2, 3.
Halapin ka?
Our
Oh, yeah.
lunch.
Malapit ka.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Here we
Okay.
go. 1, 2, 3. Alapinta.
Halapin ka!
Wow.
Thanks, Milo. Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Latency,
everyone.
man. Latency. Never forget the
All right.
latency. Halapin tao. Thank you for coming.
yeah, thank
Bye, guys. Keep
you.
on
See you in the
keep on
Facebook
training.
groups.
Bye bye guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
All right. All right. We're still live? We're still
I
live?
We're
think
still
we
live.
are.
Hold on.
Help, help me.